Yo, what's up everyone? It's Rudy from Drinks and a Movie Podcast, and in this video, I'm going to be ranking my least favorite to favorite Bond actors. Alright, here we go. So first off, before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to Canyon City Liquor. Danny, friend of the show, helped me get a hold of this E.H. Taylor rye I've been wanting for quite a while. So cheers to you guys over there at Canyon City. If you happen to find yourself in the Azusa, California area and you're into bourbon like I am, or even tequila, mezcal, they've got a wide selection. Go ahead and check them out. They're a good spot and the staff is super cool and friendly. So shout out, thank you guys for the Taylor. And so starting at number 6, okay, I have to go, this is probably kind of obvious, George Lazenby. I'm going with George Lazenby really more so. I mean, I don't think any of these actors are like bad, so it's hard to say like ranking worst to best. I don't really want to call it that. But George Lazenby, I mean, he only got to play the character one time. And he's coming after Sean Connery and like the kind of like the height of Connery doing the role as well. And it's really large shoes to fill. I don't know if anyone would have, you know, managed it. You know, it's better to be like the third person. So George Lazenby, you know, is at the bottom of the list. Again, he only had one shot. If I remember correctly, I don't even think he was an actor. He was just a model that they kind of discovered and, you know, gave him a shot. More because for his like physical look and his kind of action prowess and all that. And yeah, I mean, his performance for the most part is like kind of wooden. And it also doesn't help that he does have to go undercover. You know, he's got to go undercover as the guy from the oh man, I forget, the coat of arms or whatever, but he has to go undercover as this dude, so he's like kind of, you know, just has to change his personality a little bit, so I think that works against him. Also the fact that if I remember correctly, he was dubbed for that sequence or the whole part of the movie. I should have looked that up again. I forgot all the facts. It's just been like too much going on lately. But yeah, so George Lazenby, it would have been interesting to see how he would have grown into the role. I like to think that over time he would have managed to kind of fit into it a little bit better, but that's just kind of the way the cards fell. And yeah, so George Lazenby is number 6.
It's all right. It's quite all right, really.
So the next several choices most likely are going to be kind of hot takes, perhaps controversial, whatever you want to call it. But up next in the number 5 spot, I gotta say Daniel Craig. Okay, I know a lot of people love Craig, you know, a lot of the, you know, newer kind of Bond, or maybe not newer, I shouldn't say that, but I know a lot of people love Craig, and not that it's his fault as an actor, but you know, I went on this journey of watching all the movies, and I just didn't like the kind of, he's always like down and out and so mopey and a little too moody and sad, and it just felt kind of out of character. And obviously him as an actor, he's great, you know, that's not his fault or anything. That's just the way they wanted to take the story in that newer era of movies, you know, from Casino Royale on. They clearly had a story arc they kind of wanted to do, and it just didn't work for me after going back and starting with Dr. No and watching the movies all the way up. It was just too much. It leaned too much into that darkness, that broodiness, and lost a bit of the fun and a bit of like the charm that made the character just cool and kind of unique. You know, we don't get the little one-liners after he kills someone. You get it a couple times, but, and yeah, so Daniel Craig, I mean, good actor, I dig him, and he does do, you know, some of the stunts and some other things really well, but overall, just as the portrayal of James Bond after everything we saw up to that point, it's just not my favorite. So now in the number 4 spot, again, this is going to be probably a hot take, and I was really bouncing around with these next 4. I have to say Roger Moore. And I love Roger Moore. Again, nobody here is terrible. Nobody's bad. I love Roger Moore.
For you, mister, 20 baht.
I'll tell you what, Sonny, I'll give you 20,000 baht if you can make this heat go any faster.
20,000 baht.
I'm afraid I have to owe you.
Bloody tourist. 20,000 baht.
He's funny, you know, he started off like those first couple movies, Live and Let Die and Out, The Golden Gun, like it did feel like, you know, they were trying to make him do kind of Connery and fit into that, but once he got into the role and they, you know, made a choice to kind of lean a little more into this humor and lean into his strengths and his charm and all that, I think it worked out well. And I mean, I think he did more movies than anybody, right? I think it was 7 films, whereas Daniel Craig, I think, was Bond for like the longest period of time. I think Roger Moore did the most movies at 7, I believe. You can correct me in the comments if I've made a mistake, but I love Moore, and I do like that humor, and obviously, you know, more was Bond for a long time, but I just don't have him in that top kind of range because, you know, some of the goofier and sillier aspects of the movies he was a part of, and just him and his personality, which I love. Again, no problems here, but we are kind of, I gotta put them in some kind of order.
Q, have I ever let you down?
Frequently.
So hopefully you haven't turned the video off yet. Here's number 3.
There's nothing but playboys and tennis pros. If only I could find a real man.
I need to use your phone.
Who are you?
Bond, James Bond. Exercise Control 007 here. I'll report in an hour.
Won't you join me?
Better make that 2.
I have to give it to Timothy Dalton. And again, I was thinking about him and more a lot, thinking about this list a lot, and I've went back and revisited Dalton's movies a couple times since initially watching them for the podcast, and more I just really like his portrayal. And again, it was very jarring to me. You've heard me say this before, coming into Timothy Dalton being a little more like rugged after having Roger Moore for so long and losing a lot of the sense of humor, but he does feel just more like Bond and more serious. And I mean, you know, we were getting into the 80s. We're gonna change the tone. Like, that all makes sense to me. And Timothy Dalton, like, he has the look. I know some people talk about how the suits don't fit that well or something. That honestly hasn't caught my eye, like, in any meaningful way. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention, but Timothy Dalton, he just feels like the character. He reminds me of what I read on the page when I read the novels, you know. And I've heard other people say that it seems for a lot of people the consensus is he kind of comes closer to the character on the page. And from what I remember, I think he was probably the only one that like really dug into the novels and read all the books and like studied the character from that perspective. And I just think he really brings it. And he's so good at conveying rage and that moodiness. You know, it's like what they were trying to do with Daniel Craig, I think they already did with Timothy Dalton, and in my opinion, I think it worked better, especially since it is in continuity with the older films and the Daniel Craig stuff wasn't. It's like a new continuity. I think it works really well, and he still has that charm. You know, he's got the looks. He looks like he can fight. He looks like he's not afraid to murder anybody. And I just really appreciate his performance and that darker tone. Again, I just think it fit a little better in the 2 movies he was in. I would have loved to see him do at least one more. It would have been interesting to see how he would have developed into the role even more, especially after License to Kill. Like, where would they may have gone after that, since that was like a way darker kind of tone compared to the movies we had seen up to that point. But, you know, I guess we'll never know. So I really like Timothy Dalton. I just think he was great. I'd love to hear from you guys if there's any other people that, you know, kind of have him up there, or if there's anyone that has him in that number 1 spot. I would love to hear your take on it. Now, number 2, this was another one where I was really close to having this person in the number 1 spot.
You were expecting someone else?
But I got to put Pierce Brosnan at number 2. And I've talked about this before in the podcast episodes. What I love about Pierce and what made him so interesting is that without just like copying the other actors, like I don't feel like any of them really try to copy the other, which I like, with the exception of Moore in the first movie or 2. But I don't even think it's him. I feel like that's probably more of a studio producer thing of, oh, you got to kind of channel Connery a bit. But Pierce just manages for me to check all the boxes. He kind of has the best of everybody in him and in his portrayal. And, you know, he has like the coolness and the grit of Sean Connery. You know, he can have that kind of fighting prowess of Lazenby. He has the humor and a similar charm to Roger Moore. And, you know, he has a little bit of that darkness in him like Timothy Dalton's portrayal did. And I absolutely love that. I feel like Pierce Brosnan is the best of all worlds. And it's too bad they ended on kind of a sillier note with Die Another Day. I think what he does in GoldenEye is great, and Tomorrow Never Dies and World's Not Enough. And it would have been really great to see him, I don't know, maybe do one more and like really go out on a bang. I guess it's also a fact a little bit that, you know, growing up with GoldenEye, I was young when that game came out and that's what we played. And so when I was coming up, it's like Pierce was who I imagined as Bond. So maybe that plays into it a little bit. But again, just after experiencing, you know, Connery, Lazenby, Roger Moore, and then Tim Dalton, the best I can say about Pierce is just capturing all the elements and then putting them into like a fresh take, you know, for the 90s era. It was like a very fresh just take on the character, even though, you know, he's doing a lot of the same stuff.
Carte. 9 à la banque.
I need
Carte.
another 1,000.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
So up next, you guys probably saw this coming. Number 1, Sean Connery. Again, I was bouncing back and forth with him and Pierce Brosnan quite a bit, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't not put him as number 1 because he is the dude that set the stage and really made the character what it was. And again, it's in his approach and his mannerisms, and he's, you know, he's good looking and he has the charm, but he still has this rugged quality. Because, you know, Sean Connery grew up as like a working man and was a bodybuilder at one point and wasn't someone that came from wealth and this like high society, and he really portrays that. He looks and comes across as someone that, you know, he's been in the war, he's been a naval commander, he's been at the job for a while, so he's got the ruggedness, he's got the grit, you know, he's got this mass perseverance and just this attitude of living life to the fullest, and he enjoys all the finer things because he knows at any point he might get killed, and that's going to be that. And, you know, along with that though, he can deal with like extreme adversity and, you know, being imprisoned and being in fights and having all these things happen and being able to bounce out from that and then back to, you know, drinking his, you know, Perignon or whatever. And yeah, he's, I don't know, Connery is still like, you just look at him, he's just the coolest, like the way he wears the suits, the everything, the way he speaks and interacts with everybody. And the other thing I really love about Connery's portrayal as well, and I said this in the podcast, is he's so good at just with his look kind of conveying his thought process, right? Like when you read the novels, you're into James Bond's thought process and what he's thinking. It's a book, that's part of it, right? And in the movies you don't get that. But what I love, especially about the first few films, is you really see him kind of working things out, like in the subtext where he'll be silent and he's listening to someone speak or just kind of observing what's going on around him, and you see in his face that he's putting the pieces together, you know, and kind of solving these problems while keeping quiet about it. And I think he just conveys it extremely well, you know, that kind of spy aspect of it. And I don't know that anybody else really does it on that level. Probably Timothy Dalton, but yeah, I don't think nobody does it better than Connery, I believe. That's one thing I really love about his portrayal the most, is that aspect of it. And that's pretty nuanced, and you can tell me what you think in the comments.
I have no objections.
So yeah, Sean Connery, just ultimate badass, the ultimate Bond. So yeah, I think that's it for this one. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of disagreements, and that's fine. And I actually love to hear people be a lot different from me. And if you're someone, I mean, I don't know, is there anyone on planet Earth that has Sean Connery at the bottom? If you're one of those people, let me know and tell me why. I'd love to hear that. Or do you have Lazenby at the top? Do you have Timothy Dalton at the top, you know, or more, or Craig? I know some people like Craig, but yeah. And again, I love everybody in here. I mean, I like the actors. It just some I like more than others. I think they were handled better. Again, I think Daniel Craig was fine. I think it was more just what the writers gave him just didn't work. Kind of like Pierce Brosnan too. Like he brought a lot to the character, but some of the movies could have been a little bit better. And Moore, of course, is great. And funny enough, I actually always hear Roger Moore's voice when I read the novel, even though I don't imagine him by any means. It's like his voice and the way he speaks that sticks out to me the most. And Moore's a fun one, so don't be thrown off by the fact that I have him in 4th place. But yeah, anyway, that's a wrap on this one, guys. Thanks for listening. Again, let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.